My parents asked me to defer my Ivy League acceptance and hand over my $200,000 education fund for my high school dropout sister's expensive wedding, but my grandmother revealed the trust was legally protected and my sister had already blown through thousands in previous failed business attempts. I, 18F, am a senior in high school. My sister Madison is 25F. We grew up in what most people would call a nice neighborhood in Gresham, in a house my parents bought 15 years ago. My dad works in insurance and my mom does bookkeeping for small businesses from home. Madison dropped out of high school when she was 17. She said the teachers were boring and she wanted to start her own photography business. My parents let her do it. She bought expensive camera equipment with money she saved from her part-time job at a clothing store. The photography thing lasted about 4 months. After that she worked at different retail stores and restaurants. She would get excited about a new job and then quit after a few weeks because she didn't like the manager or the customers were rude or the schedule was too demanding. I took a different path. I kept my head down and focused on school. I maintained a 4.0 GPA all through high school. I took AP classes and studied late into the night. I joined the science club and volunteered at the local hospital on weekends. My goal has always been to become a doctor. I researched pre-med programs and created spreadsheets comparing different colleges. I filled out scholarship applications and worked on my essays for months. My paternal grandfather died when I was 10. Before he passed, he and my grandmother set up trust funds for both Madison and me. The money was supposed to cover our college expenses. Each fund had about $200,000 in it. My grandmother told me this when I turned 16 and started seriously looking at colleges. She said the money would be available when I graduated high school and enrolled in a university. Madison's fund was never discussed much in our house. When she dropped out of high school, I heard my parents and grandparents having a heated conversation in the living room one evening. I was upstairs doing homework but their voices carried. My grandmother kept saying something about protecting the money for education. My father's voice was defensive. Madison was crying. After that night, nobody mentioned her trust fund again. Last September, Madison started dating someone she met at the bar where she was working as a server. His name is Trevor and he's a bartender at another place downtown. They went on dates to chain restaurants and posted a lot of photos together on social media. Madison seemed happier than usual. She stopped complaining about her job as much. In February, Trevor proposed to Madison at a Valentine's Day dinner. She called my parents right away and they drove to the restaurant to celebrate with them. When they got home that night, my mom was practically bouncing around the kitchen. She kept saying how wonderful it was that Madison was finally settling down and finding her path. My dad opened a bottle of wine and they toasted to the engagement. I was sitting at the kitchen table working on my college applications. I had submitted my early decision application to Princeton in November and was waiting to hear back. I also applied to several other schools as backups. My mom looked at my laptop screen and asked if I was still worrying about all that. She said I should take a break and be happy for my sister. The next few weeks were all about wedding planning. Madison and Trevor looked at venues every weekend. Madison started a Pinterest board with thousands of pins. She talked constantly about wanting a destination wedding or at least something at a fancy hotel with a ballroom. My mom went with her to bridal shops and they came home with bags of magazines and fabric samples. In mid-March, my parents asked me to come to the living room for a family meeting. Madison and Trevor were already there sitting on the couch. My parents sat in the armchairs and I took the ottoman. My dad cleared his throat several times before he started talking. He said that Madison and Trevor had found the perfect venue for their wedding. It was a historic mansion on the outskirts of town that had been converted into an event space. The cost for the venue alone was $35,000. They also wanted a premium catering package, a live band, a professional photographer, flowers, and all the other things that come with a big wedding. The total estimate was around $180,000. My mom jumped in and said they had been thinking about how to make this work financially. They had some savings but not nearly enough for what Madison wanted. Then my dad said they had an idea. He asked if I would be willing to postpone college for a few years. He said I could work and save money and reapply when Madison's wedding was over and things settled down. I didn't understand what he was getting at. I asked why I would need to postpone college. My acceptance letters would be coming in soon. My grandmother had told me my trust fund would cover my tuition and expenses. My mom reached over and patted my knee. She said they knew I was a smart girl and would probably get scholarships. She said schools always need students like me. But Madison only gets one wedding. This was her chance to have something beautiful and memorable. Something she could look back on. My dad then said they wanted to use my college fund to pay for Madison's wedding. I sat there and stared at him. I asked if he was joking. He said they were completely serious. Madison needed this money more than I did. I would find other ways to pay for school. Student loans weren't that bad and plenty of people managed them just fine. But Madison deserved to start her marriage on the right foot with the wedding she had always dreamed about. Madison was looking at me with wide eyes. She said she knew it was a big ask but she really hoped I would understand. She said I had always been the golden child who got everything right. She never got to have those moments. This wedding would be her moment. I stood up and walked out of the room. I went upstairs to my bedroom and locked the door. My mom knocked and asked me to come back down so we could talk about it properly. I didn't answer. I heard them talking downstairs for a while and then the front door closed. Madison and Trevor had left. My parents came upstairs together. My dad said I was being childish and needed to think about the family. My mom said they weren't asking me to give up my education forever, just to delay it a bit and help my sister. I told them the trust fund was set up for my education. It wasn't their money to give away. My dad said they were my parents and they knew what was best for everyone. The next morning, I called my grandmother. I asked if I could come stay with her for a few days. She said of course and asked what was wrong. I told her I needed to talk to her in person. I packed a bag and left while my parents were at work. My grandmother lives about 30 minutes away in a small house she bought after my grandfather died. When I arrived, she made tea and we sat in her kitchen. I explained what my parents had asked me to do. I told her about the wedding and the money and their plan for me to defer college. My grandmother's face went red. She stood up and started pacing around the kitchen. She said the trust fund was legally designated for educational expenses only. My parents had no right to touch it. She asked if I had the paperwork from the trust. I said I had never seen any paperwork. Everything I knew came from conversations with her. She went to her bedroom and came back with a folder. Inside were documents showing the terms of both trust funds. She pointed to the section that specified the money could only be used for tuition, books, housing related to attending school, and other direct educational costs. Any attempt to use it for other purposes would require approval from the trustee, which was my grandmother. She had never approved any changes to the terms. She called my parents immediately. She told them to come to her house that evening for a meeting. She said if they didn't show up, she would contact a lawyer. My parents arrived at 7 with Madison. Trevor wasn't with them. We all sat in my grandmother's living room. My grandmother did not offer anyone tea or coffee. She put the trust fund documents on the coffee table and told my parents to read them. My dad picked them up and scanned through the pages. His face changed as he read. My mom kept glancing at Madison. My grandmother asked my parents if they understood that the trust fund could not legally be used for a wedding. My dad said he thought there might be some flexibility since it was all family money anyway. My grandmother said there was no flexibility. The terms were clear. Then my grandmother turned to Madison. She asked Madison if this was the first time she had asked my parents for money for something that wasn't education. Madison looked down at her hands. My grandmother pressed her. She asked Madison about the $15,000 she had borrowed 2 years ago to start what she called a consulting business. Madison mumbled that the business hadn't worked out. My grandmother asked about the $8,000 for a certificate program in social media marketing that Madison attended for 3 weeks before dropping out. My mom tried to interrupt but my grandmother held up her hand. She said she and my grandfather had given Madison chance after chance to use money responsibly for legitimate educational pursuits. Every time, Madison had either quit or the money disappeared into nothing. She said she was done enabling that pattern. The trust fund for me would remain untouched and would be used exactly as intended. Madison started crying. She said my grandmother had always favored me. She said everyone in the family thought I was perfect and she was the failure. My grandmother said that wasn't about favoritism. It was about responsibility and following through on commitments. My parents and Madison left after that. My grandmother told me I could stay with her as long as I needed. She said she would make sure the legal protections on the trust fund were ironclad. She called her lawyer the next day and had him review everything. For the next week, my mom sent me text messages every day. She sent me articles about student loans and how they were a normal part of the college experience. She sent me statistics about average student debt. She said lots of successful doctors had loans and paid them off eventually. She said I was being selfish and short-sighted. My dad called me once. He said I was tearing the family apart over money. He said money shouldn't matter more than family relationships. I asked him why Madison's wedding mattered more than my education. He didn't have an answer for that. I stayed at my grandmother's house. In early April, I got my acceptance letter from Princeton. I also got into 3 other schools. My grandmother took me out to dinner to celebrate. She posted about my acceptance on Facebook with a photo of me holding the letter. I didn't go back home after that. My grandmother said I could live with her until I left for college in August. She helped me get my things from my parents' house when they were at work one day. We filled her car with my clothes, books, and other belongings. I left my key on the kitchen counter. Update 1: It's been about 5 weeks since I moved in with my grandmother. A lot has happened and I thought I should update everyone who commented on my original post. 3 weeks ago, my parents showed up at my grandmother's house on a Saturday afternoon. I was studying for my AP exams in the guest bedroom when I heard the doorbell. My grandmother answered it and I heard my parents' voices in the hallway. They said they wanted to talk to me and work things out as a family. My grandmother let them in but she stayed in the room with us. We sat in the living room again, same as before. My dad said they had been thinking about everything and they wanted to propose a compromise. He said I could take a gap year instead of deferring for 3 years. During that gap year, I could help Madison plan her wedding and be really involved in the process. Then after the wedding, I could start college a year late. My mom added that in this compromise, I would keep half of my trust fund for college. The other half would go toward the wedding. She said this way everyone got something and nobody had to feel like they lost. My grandmother didn't let me respond. She told my parents there would be no compromise involving my trust fund in any way. She said they needed to leave her house and stop harassing me. My dad called her unreasonable. My mom said my grandmother was turning me against my own family. My grandmother opened the front door and told them to get out. They left, but my dad yelled from the driveway that I was being ungrateful and would regret this decision. 2 weeks ago, my grandmother posted on Facebook about my Princeton acceptance again, this time with more details about my full ride scholarship. She was proud and wanted to share the news with extended family. Several aunts and uncles commented with congratulations. Some cousins did too. Madison saw the post. That evening she made her own Facebook post. She wrote a long paragraph about how some people in the family only care about showing off and making others look bad. She said her younger sister was deliberately trying to steal attention during what was supposed to be Madison's special time. She said the family always celebrated academic achievements but never acknowledged other types of success. She said she was tired of being in someone else's shadow. Several people commented on Madison's post asking what she meant. A few asked if everything was okay. Madison replied to one comment and said that some family members had promised to help with her wedding but then backed out at the last minute, leaving her and Trevor in a difficult position. One of my cousins, Jennifer, messaged me privately on Facebook. She asked what was going on. I explained the whole situation with the trust fund and my parents' request. Jennifer was shocked. She said she had no idea any of this was happening. She asked if Madison and Trevor were actually in a difficult position financially or if that was just what Madison was saying. That got me thinking. I checked Madison's social media accounts. She and Trevor had been posting about their wedding plans constantly. They posted photos from the historic mansion venue. They posted screenshots of their conversations with the caterer and the florist. They posted about booking a band that usually played at expensive corporate events. Jennifer did some digging because she works in event planning and knows people in the industry. She called the venue and pretended to be interested in booking it for an event. She asked about pricing and availability. The person on the phone told her that the mansion required a non-refundable deposit of $15,000 to hold a date. Jennifer asked if they had any dates available in September, which was when Madison's wedding was supposed to be. The person said September was completely booked and had been for months. Jennifer called me and told me what she found out. We realized that Madison and Trevor must have actually put down deposits and booked vendors without having the money to pay for everything. They had committed to the wedding based on the assumption that my parents would get access to my trust fund. The next day, Madison made another Facebook post. This one was more desperate. She wrote that she and Trevor had planned their dream wedding and made commitments they couldn't back out of. She said unexpected financial circumstances had put them in a bind. She asked if anyone knew good wedding vendors who might work on a payment plan or at a discount. My Aunt Lisa, who is my dad's sister, commented on the post asking what happened to the money Madison's parents had promised. Madison replied that the money fell through because of a legal technicality. Aunt Lisa asked what kind of legal technicality. Madison didn't respond to that comment. Later that week, Trevor's parents got involved. Trevor's mom called my dad. My grandmother was on the phone with my aunt at the time and my aunt told her about it afterward. Trevor's mom was angry. She said Trevor had told them his fiancée came from a well-off family that was helping pay for the wedding. Now Trevor was telling them the money wasn't coming and they had thousands of dollars in deposits locked in for vendors. She asked my dad what was going on. My dad apparently told Trevor's mom that there had been a family disagreement about money. Trevor's mom asked him to clarify. My dad said his mother-in-law had blocked access to funds that were supposed to help Madison. Trevor's mom asked why a grandmother would block money for a wedding. My dad didn't give her a straight answer. Trevor's mom started asking Trevor questions. Trevor asked Madison questions. Madison finally admitted to Trevor that she didn't actually have a college degree like she had told him when they first met. She also admitted that the small business owner thing she had mentioned was actually a multi-level marketing company she had joined for a few months before quitting. Trevor was upset about the lies but said they could work through it. Then his parents got a call from a credit card company about a missed payment on a card under Trevor's name. Trevor didn't recognize the card. He checked his credit report and found 2 credit cards he had never opened. Both had balances of several $1,000s. The charges were all to wedding vendors. Trevor confronted Madison about the cards. She admitted she had opened them using his information. She said she had access to all his documents because they lived together and she needed a way to pay the deposits when my parents couldn't get the trust fund money. She said she planned to pay everything back after the wedding when they got gift money from guests. Trevor's parents were beyond angry. They threatened to report Madison to the police for identity theft and credit card fraud. My parents freaked out. My dad called my grandmother and begged her to help. He said if Madison got arrested it would destroy her life. He asked if my grandmother would pay off the credit cards to make Trevor's parents drop the threat of legal action. My grandmother said she would think about it. She talked to her lawyer. The lawyer said that paying off the debt could be seen as helping Madison avoid consequences for illegal activity, but it might also protect the family from a bigger mess. My grandmother decided to pay off the credit cards, which totaled about $12,000. But she made it clear to my parents and Madison that this was the last time she would ever bail Madison out of anything. Trevor's parents insisted that Trevor call off the wedding. They said Madison had lied about her background, committed fraud, and put their son in financial and legal jeopardy. Trevor agreed with them. He broke up with Madison and moved back in with his parents. Madison spent the next week locked in her bedroom at my parents' house. My mom called me crying and said I should come home and talk to my sister. She said Madison was in a dark place and needed family support. I told my mom I wasn't going to comfort Madison for the consequences of her own choices. My mom said I was heartless. The wedding was officially canceled. Madison had to contact all the vendors and try to get deposits back. Most were non-refundable. My parents lost the money they had put down. Madison also lost the few $100s she had contributed from her own savings. Update 2: It's been 2 months since my last update. I'm writing this from my dorm room at Princeton. Classes started 3 weeks ago and I'm settling into college life. But there have been some developments with my family that I wanted to share. About 6 weeks ago, my parents called my grandmother and asked to meet with her and me. My grandmother asked what it was about. My dad said they wanted to talk about moving forward as a family. My grandmother asked if Madison would be there. My mom said no, Madison wasn't ready for that yet. We met at my grandmother's house again. My parents looked tired. My mom had circles under her eyes and my dad had lost weight. They sat on the couch and my grandmother and I sat across from them. My dad started talking. He said they had spent the past month really looking at how they had been handling things with Madison. He said they realized they had been making excuses for her for years. Every time Madison started something and then quit, they had told themselves it was just bad luck or the wrong opportunity. Every time Madison asked for money, they gave it to her because they thought it would help her get on track. My mom said they had been so focused on trying to help Madison that they hadn't paid attention to me at all. She said I had always been responsible and self-sufficient, so they assumed I didn't need them the same way Madison did. She said that wasn't fair to me. My dad said they understood now that asking me to give up my college fund was wrong. He said they had been desperate to make Madison happy and hadn't thought about what it would cost me. He apologized. My mom apologized too. She said she was sorry for the text messages and the phone calls pressuring me. She said she was sorry for accusing me of being selfish and tearing the family apart. I didn't say anything right away. My grandmother asked them what had changed. My dad said it was the credit card situation. Seeing Madison commit fraud and then watching her relationship fall apart had been a wake-up call. He said they couldn't keep protecting Madison from reality. My mom said they had been enabling her and calling it love. I asked them if Madison knew they were here. My mom said yes. She said Madison had actually been the one who suggested they apologize to me. I found that hard to believe, but my mom insisted it was true. A few days after that conversation, Madison sent me a message on Facebook. She asked if she could call me. I didn't respond right away. I thought about it for 2 days. Then I told her she could call. Madison called me on a Wednesday evening. She sounded different than usual. Her voice was quieter. She said she wanted to apologize for everything that happened. She said she had been jealous of me for years and that jealousy had turned into resentment. She said watching me succeed at everything while she struggled made her feel worthless. She said she had convinced herself that I had it easy and she deserved something good too. Madison said the wedding had become an obsession for her because she thought it would prove she could have something special. She said she knew it was messed up to try to take my college money, but she had been so focused on getting what she wanted that she didn't care who got hurt. She said losing Trevor and facing the reality of the credit card fraud had forced her to look at herself honestly for the first time. She said she didn't like what she saw. She said she had wasted years of her life starting things and quitting them, blaming other people for her problems, and expecting everyone else to fix things for her. I asked her what she planned to do now. She said she wanted to go back to school. Not for anyone else but for herself. She said she had talked to my grandmother about the possibility of using her original trust fund to get her GED and then go to community college. My grandmother had agreed to help her but only under strict conditions. Madison would have to maintain a 4.0 GPA, meet with a financial counselor every month, and check in with my grandmother weekly about her progress. Madison said she understood those conditions and accepted them. She said she enrolled in a GED prep course and had been attending classes 4 times a week. She said it was harder than she expected, but she was sticking with it. I didn't know what to say to all of this. Part of me was skeptical. Madison had made promises before and broken them. But she sounded genuine in a way I hadn't heard from her in years. I told her I appreciated the apology, but I needed time to process everything. She said she understood. She said she wasn't expecting me to forgive her right away or maybe ever. She just wanted me to know she was sorry and she was trying to change. After I started college, things got busier. I'm taking 5 classes and volunteering at the university hospital on weekends. I joined the pre-med student organization and attended their first meeting. My roommate is studying engineering and we get along well. We stay up late studying together and order pizza when the dining hall closes. My grandmother came to visit me 2 weeks ago. She brought me groceries and some kitchen supplies for my dorm. We had lunch at a cafe near campus. She told me that Madison had taken her GED test and passed. Madison was now enrolled at the local community college taking 4 classes. My grandmother showed me a photo on her phone of Madison on her first day of classes. Madison was holding a notebook and wearing a backpack. She looked younger somehow. My grandmother said my parents were doing better too. They had started paying off the debt from the wedding deposits. My dad picked up extra hours at work. My mom took on more bookkeeping clients. They were trying to rebuild their savings. I asked my grandmother if she thought Madison would really stick with school this time. My grandmother said she didn't know, but Madison seemed more serious than before. She said Madison had come to her house last weekend and showed her all her assignments and the grades she had gotten so far. All as. My extended family has been reaching out to me more. Aunt Lisa sent me a care package with snacks and a card apologizing for not understanding what was happening earlier. My cousin Jennifer messages me every few days to check in and see how classes are going. Another aunt sent me a gift card to the campus bookstore. Last week, Madison sent me another message. She asked if she could send me something. I said okay. A few days later, a package arrived at my dorm. Inside was a care package with tea, granola bars, highlighters, and sticky notes. There was also a card. Madison had written that she knew finals were coming up and she wanted to send me something helpful. She wrote that she was proud of me and sorry she had never said that before. She wrote that she hoped one day we could rebuild our relationship, but she understood if that didn't happen. I haven't responded to the card yet. I put it on my desk next to my laptop. Sometimes I look at it while I'm studying. Update 3: It's been 4 months since I started at Princeton. Winter break just ended and I'm back on campus for the spring semester. I'm writing this final update because some people have been messaging me asking how everything turned out. Madison finished her first semester at community college with a 4.0 GPA. My grandmother told me this over winter break when I visited her for a few days. Madison is taking 5 classes this semester. She's majoring in business administration and wants to finish her associate degree before transferring to a 4-year school. My grandmother still meets with Madison weekly. Madison brings her assignments and test grades to show she's staying on track. The financial counselor my grandmother hired has been working with Madison on budgeting and rebuilding her credit. Madison got a part-time job at a coffee shop near campus. She works 20 hours a week and uses that money to pay for gas and personal expenses. She doesn't ask my parents for money anymore. I went home for 3 days during winter break. My parents had asked me to visit and I decided to go. The house looked the same but the atmosphere was different. My parents didn't hover over me or bombard me with questions. We had dinner together and they asked about my classes and my plans for next semester. My dad asked about my pre-med track and what specialties I was interested in. My mom asked if I needed anything for school. Madison came over for dinner on my last night at home. I hadn't seen her in person since I left for college in August. She looked different. She had cut her hair shorter and wasn't wearing as much makeup as she used to. She dressed more casually, just jeans and a sweater. We sat around the dining table and ate the pasta my mom made. Madison talked about her classes. She talked about a group project she was working on and how she was learning to use Excel for her accounting class. She asked me about Princeton and what my favorite class was. I told her about my introductory biology course and the lab work we were doing. She seemed genuinely interested. After dinner, Madison and I ended up in the living room while my parents cleaned up the kitchen. Madison asked if we could talk privately. We went outside and sat on the porch steps. Madison said she wanted me to know that she was serious about changing. She said the past few months had been the hardest of her life but also the most important. She said she finally understood what it meant to work towards something and not give up when it got difficult. She said she was grateful to my grandmother for giving her another chance but making her earn it. I told Madison I was glad she was doing well in school. I said I hoped she would keep going. She said she would. She said she had too much to lose now. Madison said she knew our relationship might never be the same as it could have been if she hadn't messed everything up. She said she wasn't asking me to forget what happened. She just wanted me to know she was trying to be better. I told her I saw that she was trying. I said I needed more time but I was willing to see where things went. She nodded and said that was fair. Before I left to go back to my grandmother's house where I was staying, Madison gave me another care package. This one had more practical things like laundry pods, tissues, and hand sanitizer. She said she asked her roommate at community college what college students actually needed. My relationship with my parents is still strained but functional. We talk on the phone once a week. They don't bring up the trust fund or the wedding anymore. They ask about school and my grandmother. My dad sent me money for textbooks last month without me asking. My mom mailed me a box of my favorite cookies. I don't know if my family will ever be close the way some families are. Too much happened and trust doesn't rebuild overnight. But we're talking and that's something. My grandmother is still the person I'm closest to. She visits me once a month and we have lunch together. She's proud of me but she doesn't make a big show of it. She just tells me she's glad I'm where I'm supposed to be. I'm doing well at Princeton. My GPA after first semester was a 3.9. I got an A- in chemistry, which brought it down, but I'm taking the second part of that course now and doing better. I'm applying for a summer research position with one of the biology professors. I'm also looking into study abroad programs for next year. Madison sent me a message last week. She said she got accepted into a transfer program with a state university. If she maintains her GPA at community college, she can transfer after she finishes her associate degree and complete her bachelor's there. She said the program even offers some scholarships for transfer students with high GPAs. She asked if I thought my grandmother would help her with the application. I told her to ask my grandmother directly. I'm not going home for spring break. I'm staying on campus to work on research with the professor I've been assisting. My grandmother is visiting me for a weekend during the break. Madison asked if she could come too. I said maybe next time. That's where things stand now. My college fund was never touched. I'm using it exactly as my grandfather intended. Madison is paying for community college through her original trust fund under my grandmother's supervision. My parents are managing their own finances without trying to redistribute money that isn't theirs. I don't have a wrapped up ending where everything is perfect and everyone is happy. But I have my education and my future. That's what matters. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. My sister asked me to work as kitchen help at her wedding while charging me $150 for dinner. I said no due to health issues. Then at our grandmother's 85th birthday party, she publicly humiliated me in front of the entire family, saying my health problems were just excuses for special treatment. I received my sister's wedding invitation 3 weeks ago. The envelope looked elegant with gold lettering. I placed it on my kitchen counter and called my husband over to see it. We both smiled looking at the beautiful design. The invitation was addressed to both of us, which made me assume we were both invited as regular guests. I have always loved attending weddings. My sister Jenny, 28F, and I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other. Our families have deep roots, they're going back 3 generations. Jenny and I are only 2 years apart. I'm Joelle, 30F, and work as a part-time bookkeeper while managing a chronic autoimmune condition that affects my joints and energy levels. Our relationship had its ups and downs over the years. When we were teenagers, Jenny was the popular one who played volleyball and dated the quarterback. I spent most of my time reading or helping our grandmother with her garden. Jenny went to college on a partial sports scholarship while I stayed home and took community college classes. She moved to the city after graduation and got a job at a marketing firm. I married my high school boyfriend Zach, 32M, and we stayed in our hometown. Despite living in different places, we talked regularly. Jenny visited for holidays and family gatherings. She met her fiancé Ronald, 30M, at a work conference 2 years ago. He works in finance and seems like a decent guy, though we have only met him 3 times. The first time was at Christmas dinner last year where he spent most of the evening on his phone. The second time was at our cousin's graduation party where he complained about the food being too spicy. The third time was at our grandmother's funeral 6 months ago where he kept checking his watch during the service. Jenny called me after Ronald proposed. She was excited about planning a destination wedding at a resort 3 hours away from our town. The venue costs were significant, she explained, which meant they had to be selective about certain aspects of the day. I offered to help with decorations or whatever she needed. She thanked me but said she had everything under control. 2 weeks before I received the invitation, Jenny mentioned during a phone call that they were expecting around 180 guests. She said the venue had specific requirements and limitations they had to work around. I assumed this meant typical wedding logistics like seating arrangements and meal planning. When I opened the actual invitation, everything looked standard. Beautiful script font announcing the ceremony at 2 p.m. followed by dinner and dancing. Below the main invitation was a smaller card with additional information. At first glance, it appeared to be the usual details about dress code and directions. Then I read it more carefully. The card stated that while Zach was invited to attend the ceremony and reception as a regular guest, I was assigned to work in the kitchen helping the catering staff throughout the entire event. It specified that I would need to arrive 2 hours early to assist with food preparation and setup. During the ceremony, I would be responsible for keeping the appetizers warm and ready for the cocktail hour. During dinner, I would help serve plates and refill water glasses. After dinner, I would help with cleanup while the other guests enjoyed dancing. The card mentioned that 4 other female relatives had been assigned similar duties. It noted that we should still dress appropriately for a wedding since we might appear in some photos while serving. The card also included a link to pay for our meals, which were $150 each since we would be eating the same food as the other guests, just in the kitchen area during our breaks. At the bottom was a link to their gift registry with a note suggesting that gifts in the $75 to $150 range would be most appreciated. I read the card 3 times before showing it to Zach. He picked it up and his forehead wrinkled as he went through it. He set it down and looked at me. We sat in silence for several minutes. My first thought was whether this was some kind of mistake. Maybe the cards got mixed up and I received someone else's assignment by accident. But my name was clearly printed at the top of the card along with my specific duties. The more I thought about it, the more problems I identified with this arrangement. My autoimmune condition causes unpredictable flare-ups that affect my energy and joint mobility. Some days I feel fine and can do normal activities. Other days, my hands are too stiff to grip objects properly and my knees ache from minimal walking. I take medication that helps, but it does not eliminate all symptoms. Working in a kitchen for 8 hours would be physically challenging on a good day. On a bad day, it would be impossible. I could not predict how I would feel on the wedding day, which was still 3 weeks away. Even if I felt decent that morning, the physical demands could trigger a flare-up that would last for days afterward. Beyond the physical concerns, there was the issue of fairness. Jenny and I have had our differences, but I always assumed she valued me as her sister and wanted me present at her wedding as family, not as unpaid labor. Zach would be sitting with the other guests, eating his meal at the proper time, and enjoying the celebration while I would be washing dishes in the back. The financial aspect was particularly irritating. Paying $150 to work at someone's wedding seemed backwards. If Jenny needed help with catering costs, she could have asked family members to contribute money toward the reception or chosen a less expensive venue. Instead, she created this system where certain people had to pay for the privilege of working. I called our mother to ask if she had received a similar card. She said her invitation was normal and she was assigned to a table near the front with other immediate family members. When I described my card, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said Jenny had mentioned needing help with the catering, but she assumed Jenny meant hiring additional staff. I asked if she knew who the other 4 women were who received kitchen assignments. She said she thought it might be our cousins Lisa and Maria, plus Jenny's former college roommate and one of Ronald's sisters. All of them were close family or longtime friends, not distant relatives or acquaintances. This pattern made me wonder what criteria Jenny used to decide who would be guests versus who would be workers. Zach was included as a regular guest even though he barely knew Jenny and had no relationship with Ronald. Meanwhile, I was assigned to kitchen duty despite being her only sister and one of the closest family members. Our mother suggested I call Jenny directly to discuss the situation. She offered to speak with Jenny first, but I decided to handle it myself. This was between Jenny and me, and involving our mother might make things more complicated. I waited 2 days before calling, hoping I could approach the conversation calmly. Jenny answered on the 3rd ring and sounded busy. I could hear traffic in the background, which meant she was probably walking somewhere in the city. I told her I had received the invitation and wanted to clarify my assignment. She immediately became defensive and said she had thought carefully about who would be best suited for different roles at the wedding. She explained that the venue required them to provide additional help for the catering staff due to the large guest count and specific timeline requirements. I mentioned my health condition and explained that standing and working in a kitchen for 8 hours would be difficult for me. She said she understood but pointed out that I could take breaks as needed and that the other women assigned to kitchen duty would help cover for me if I needed to rest. Then I brought up the $150 meal charge. Jenny's tone became sharper. She said the venue charged the same amount per person regardless of whether someone was a guest or a worker, and she could not afford to cover meals for people who were not paying. She added that everyone else assigned to kitchen duty had already agreed to pay without complaining. I asked why Zach was invited as a regular guest while I was assigned to work. Jenny paused for several seconds before saying that they needed an even number of people at each table for seating arrangements, and Zach fit better into their layout than I did. This explanation did not make sense to me. Wedding seating charts are flexible, and one person could easily be moved to balance the tables. There had to be another reason she did not want to share. I told Jenny I needed time to think about whether I could commit to the kitchen assignment given my health limitations. She said I needed to respond soon because they had to finalize numbers with the catering company. Then she hung up. That evening, Zach and I discussed our options. He offered to decline his invitation and stay home with me, but I did not want him to miss the wedding because of my situation. He suggested we both attend as regular guests and offer to pay the extra cost for my meal, but Jenny had specifically assigned me to kitchen duty, not given me a choice between guest and worker status. I considered calling back and explaining in more detail how my condition affects me, but Jenny already knew about my health problems. She had visited during 2 of my worst flare-ups in recent years and seen how limited my mobility became. If she thought I could handle kitchen work despite knowing my limitations, then more explanation probably would not change her mind. The deadline for responding was approaching. I needed to decide whether to accept the kitchen assignment, decline the invitation entirely, or try to negotiate a different arrangement. None of these options felt satisfactory, but I had to choose something. Update 1: I sent Jenny a text message declining the kitchen assignment. I explained that my health condition made it impossible for me to work in a kitchen for 8 hours, and I wished her a wonderful wedding day. I did not mention anything about being excluded as a guest or the meal charge. I kept the message brief and polite. Jenny responded 2 days later asking if I was declining to attend the wedding entirely or just refusing to help with kitchen duties. I clarified that I was declining to attend since kitchen work was my only option for participation. She replied with a long message saying she was disappointed that I was not willing to help family during an important celebration. Zach decided to attend the wedding anyway since his invitation was separate from mine. I encouraged him to go and represent our family. The wedding was on a Saturday, so I planned to spend the day working in my garden and catching up on household projects. The morning of the wedding, our cousin Lisa called me. She had also been assigned to kitchen duty and wanted to know if I was planning to attend. When I told her I had declined, she became very talkative. She said she had spoken with Maria, Jenny's former roommate, and Ronald's sister about their assignments. All of them had concerns but felt pressured to agree because they did not want to cause family drama. Lisa mentioned that she had called the wedding venue directly to ask about their catering policies. The person she spoke with seemed confused when she asked about guests being required to help kitchen staff. They told her that was not a standard arrangement and that professional catering staff typically handled all food service independently. This information bothered me because it suggested Jenny had created the kitchen assignments for reasons other than venue requirements. I decided not to investigate further since I had already declined to attend. Zach left for the wedding at noon since he needed to drive 3 hours to reach the venue. He promised to text me updates throughout the day. Around 2 p.m., he sent a message saying the ceremony was beautiful and Jenny looked very happy. At 4 p.m., he texted that cocktail hour was going well and the venue was impressive. At 6 p.m., I received a call from Lisa. She was crying and speaking very quickly. She said she needed to tell me what had happened at the reception. I asked her to slow down and explain clearly. Lisa said that when she and the other assigned women arrived at the kitchen, the catering manager seemed surprised to see them. He told them that his staff was fully prepared to handle the event and did not need additional help. When Lisa showed him Jenny's card with the kitchen assignments, he looked confused and said he had never seen anything like it before. The catering manager called Jenny over to clarify the situation. Jenny became flustered and said there had been a misunderstanding. She told the women they could join the other guests for dinner instead of working in the kitchen. However, she also mentioned that since they had not paid for guest meals, they would need to eat from a separate buffet set up in a side room. Lisa said the separate buffet consisted of sandwiches and salad while the regular guests were served a plated dinner with chicken, salmon, or vegetarian options. The women ate their sandwiches quickly and then were told they could watch the reception from the back of the room but should not take seats at any tables since those were reserved for paying guests. At this point in Lisa's call, I could hear Maria talking in the background. Lisa put the call on speaker so Maria could speak directly to me. Maria said she felt humiliated by the entire situation. She had driven 4 hours to attend the wedding, bought a new dress, and paid for a hotel room. Instead of being treated as a family member, she spent the evening standing against the wall watching other people dance. Lisa took the phone back and said Ronald's sister had left the reception early because she was so uncomfortable. Jenny's former roommate stayed until the end but spent most of the time in the bathroom crying. Lisa and Maria left together around 9 p.m., even though the reception was supposed to continue until midnight. After Lisa hung up, I sat on my couch processing what I had heard. The kitchen assignments were not based on venue requirements or practical needs. Jenny had created a separate category of attendees who were expected to pay money and receive inferior treatment while contributing labor or at least being available to contribute labor. I wondered whether Jenny had planned this arrangement from the beginning or if it developed as wedding costs increased. Either way, she had decided that certain family members and friends were worth less than others and structured her wedding to reflect that hierarchy. Zach came home around 11 p.m. He was quiet when he walked in and sat down next to me without saying anything. I asked how the rest of the reception went. He said it was fine but he had noticed that some people seemed to be missing from the later part of the evening. When he asked other guests about it, they mentioned that a few women had left early but no one knew why. I told Zach about my conversation with Lisa. His face changed as I described what had happened with the kitchen assignments and the separate buffet. He said he wished he had known about the situation while he was there because he would have spoken up or left in solidarity. Zach mentioned that during dinner, he was seated at a table with people he did not know well. The conversation was polite but superficial. He said it felt strange to be eating an expensive meal while knowing that my cousins were eating sandwiches in another room because they could not afford the guest meal price. I asked if Jenny had seemed happy during the reception. Zach said she appeared to be enjoying herself and spent most of the evening dancing and taking photos. He did not think she was aware that the kitchen-assigned women had left early, or if she was aware, it did not seem to bother her. We talked until almost 1 a.m. about the entire situation. Zach said he felt guilty for attending the wedding after learning how poorly my family members had been treated. I told him I was glad he went because now we had a complete picture of what happened. The next morning, I received a text from Jenny thanking everyone who attended the wedding and saying it was the perfect day she had always dreamed of. The message was sent to a group that included me, even though I had not attended. I did not respond to the message. Update 2: Our mother called me last week asking if I had spoken with Jenny recently. I told her we had not talked since before the wedding. She said Jenny had been complaining to family members that some people were spreading rumors about her wedding and making her look bad. I asked what kind of rumors Jenny was referring to. Our mother said Jenny claimed that certain family members were exaggerating what happened at the reception and making it sound worse than it actually was. Jenny apparently told people that she had offered everyone the same food and treatment, but some guests chose to leave early for their own personal reasons. This version of events contradicted what Lisa and Maria had told me, so I called Lisa to get more details. Lisa said she had been getting phone calls from various family members asking about the wedding. She had been honest about her experience, which included eating sandwiches while other guests had plated dinners and being told to stand in the back instead of sitting at tables. Lisa mentioned that our aunt had called Jenny directly to ask about the different treatment of guests. Jenny had become defensive and said that Lisa was misremembering what happened because she was stressed about other personal issues. Jenny claimed that all guests received the same meal options and seating arrangements. I found it concerning that Jenny was contradicting the accounts of multiple people who had been present at the wedding. Lisa, Maria, Ronald's sister, and Jenny's former roommate had all described similar experiences, but Jenny was claiming their memories were inaccurate. Our mother asked if I planned to reach out to Jenny to resolve the misunderstanding. I explained that there was no misunderstanding from my perspective. Jenny had invited me to work in her kitchen for 8 hours while paying $150 for the privilege. When I declined due to health limitations, she did not offer an alternative way for me to attend as a regular guest. The situation was clear regardless of what happened to the other women at the reception. 2 days after talking with our mother, I received a Facebook message from Jenny. She said she had heard that people were talking about her wedding and spreading false information. She wanted to set the record straight about what actually happened. According to Jenny's message, the venue had required additional help with food service due to health department regulations. She had asked family members to assist because hiring professional staff would have been too expensive. Everyone who helped was fed the same meal as other guests and was treated with appreciation and respect. Jenny wrote that some people had chosen to leave the reception early for personal reasons unrelated to their assignments or treatment. She was hurt that these individuals were now making negative comments about her special day instead of being happy for her marriage. The message ended with Jenny saying she hoped we could move past this situation and maintain our family relationship. She suggested that miscommunications had led to hurt feelings, but the important thing was supporting each other going forward. I read Jenny's message several times before deciding how to respond. Her account of the evening differed significantly from what multiple attendees had described to me. Either several people were lying about their experiences, or Jenny was rewriting history to avoid responsibility for how she had treated her guests. I sent back a brief message acknowledging that I had received her explanation. I did not agree or disagree with her version of events since I had not been present to witness what happened. I also did not commit to moving past the situation or maintaining our relationship at the previous level. Jenny responded asking if I was planning to attend family gatherings going forward or if I intended to avoid events where she would be present. I told her I would make decisions about family events based on various factors as they arose. This seemed to frustrate Jenny because she sent another message saying she needed to know where we stood as sisters. She wrote that family relationships require forgiveness and compromise, especially after special occasions like weddings where emotions run high and misunderstandings can occur. I replied that I understood her perspective but needed time to process everything that had happened. I suggested that we both focus on our own lives for now rather than trying to force a resolution. Jenny did not respond to my last message, but I noticed that she removed me from several social media groups related to family events and updates. Our mother mentioned that Jenny had asked her not to share information about my life during their phone calls because Jenny needed space to deal with wedding stress. Lisa called me yesterday to say that she had also received messages from Jenny asking her to stop discussing the wedding with other family members. Jenny had told Lisa that continued complaints about the reception were causing problems in her marriage because Ronald was hearing negative feedback about their special day. Maria sent me a text saying that Jenny had blocked her on social media after Maria declined to retract her account of the reception experience. Maria said she had never posted anything publicly about the wedding, but she had answered honestly when family members asked her directly about what happened. I have been thinking about how family dynamics change after significant events. Jenny's wedding has created divisions that did not exist before. Some family members are taking sides, while others are trying to stay neutral and maintain relationships with everyone involved. Our mother continues to encourage reconciliation, but she acknowledges that both Jenny and I have valid concerns about how the situation was handled. She said she wishes the wedding planning process had included more communication to prevent misunderstandings. I am not actively seeking conflict with Jenny, but I am also not willing to pretend that everything is normal between us. Her decision to treat certain family members as second-class guests while charging them money revealed something about her priorities and values that I cannot ignore. The financial aspect still bothers me the most. If Jenny could not afford to host 180 guests properly, she should have planned a smaller wedding within her budget. Instead, she created a system where some people subsidized others' experiences while receiving inferior treatment themselves. Update 3: Our grandmother's birthday party was scheduled for last weekend. She was turning 85, and our mother had been planning the celebration for months. The party was supposed to bring together extended family members who had not seen each other since Jenny's wedding. I debated whether to attend because I knew Jenny would be there. Zach encouraged me to go since the party was for our grandmother, not for Jenny. I decided to attend but planned to keep interactions with Jenny brief and polite. When we arrived at the community center where the party was being held, I saw Jenny and Ronald sitting at a table near the front. Jenny looked up when I walked in but did not wave or acknowledge me. I greeted our grandmother and other family members before finding seats at a table toward the back. The party proceeded normally for the first hour. People shared stories about our grandmother and looked through old photo albums. Our grandmother seemed happy to have everyone together and was enjoying the attention. During the dinner portion of the party, our uncle stood up to give a toast about our grandmother's impact on the family. He mentioned how she had always emphasized the importance of treating everyone with kindness and respect, regardless of their circumstances or limitations. As he was speaking, Jenny suddenly stood up and interrupted him. She said she needed to address something that had been bothering her for months. She looked directly at me and began talking about how some family members had been spreading lies about her wedding and trying to ruin her reputation. Jenny said she had tried to handle the situation privately, but since people continued to gossip and make false accusations, she needed to set the record straight publicly. She claimed that everyone at her wedding had been treated equally and that any complaints were based on misunderstandings or jealousy. The room became very quiet. Our grandmother looked confused and asked what was happening. Our mother tried to redirect Jenny's attention back to the birthday celebration, but Jenny continued talking. Jenny said that I had refused to help with her wedding and then convinced other family members to complain about their experiences. She claimed that I was jealous because she had succeeded in life while I had stayed in our hometown and never accomplished anything significant. At this point, Lisa stood up and said that Jenny's accusations were completely wrong. Lisa described exactly what had happened at the wedding reception, including the separate buffet and being told to stand in the back of the room. Maria nodded and confirmed Lisa's account. Jenny became more agitated and said that Lisa and Maria were lying to support me because we were all bitter about not being included in the main celebration. She said the three of us had formed an alliance to attack her marriage and her happiness. Our uncle tried to calm Jenny down and suggested that wedding discussions should happen at a different time and place. Jenny ignored him and continued talking about how ungrateful and jealous certain family members were. Ronald finally stood up and took Jenny's arm, suggesting they should leave. Jenny shook him off and said she was not finished defending herself against false accusations. She pointed at me and said I had ruined her wedding by refusing to participate and then poisoned other people against her. I had remained quiet during Jenny's entire speech, but at this point I stood up and spoke. I said that I had declined to work in her kitchen due to health limitations and had not attended the wedding at all. I had not spread rumors or convinced anyone to complain about their experiences. People had shared their own experiences with me, but I had not initiated those conversations. Jenny said that my health problems were just an excuse to avoid helping family and that I used my condition to get sympathy and special treatment. She said I was selfish and had always expected other people to accommodate my limitations instead of trying harder to participate normally. Our grandmother started crying at this point. She asked everyone to stop arguing and focus on celebrating her birthday. Several other family members gathered around her to provide comfort and support. Zach and I decided to leave immediately. We said goodbye to our grandmother and walked out while Jenny was still talking to Ronald near their table. As we reached the parking lot, we could hear raised voices continuing inside the building. Our mother called me the next morning to apologize for what had happened. She said Jenny and Ronald had left shortly after we did, and the party had continued quietly for another hour. Our grandmother had recovered from her initial upset but kept asking why people were fighting at her birthday celebration. Lisa called that afternoon to check on me. She said several family members had approached her after we left to ask about the wedding situation. She had provided factual accounts of what happened, and most people seemed to understand why she, Maria, and I were upset about our treatment. Our cousin David, who had been seated near Jenny during her outburst, told Lisa that he was shocked by Jenny's behavior and comments about my health condition. He said he had never seen Jenny act so aggressively toward family members before. Ronald sent me a text message 2 days later apologizing for what had happened at the party. He said Jenny had been under a lot of stress since the wedding and was not handling family conflicts well. He asked if there was anything he could do to help resolve the situation. I replied that I appreciated his concern but that the issues between Jenny and me were not something he needed to fix. I suggested that Jenny might benefit from taking time to think about how she wanted to handle family relationships going forward. Our mother has stopped encouraging reconciliation between Jenny and me. She said she realized after the birthday party that the problems were more serious than she had initially understood. She also said she was disappointed in how Jenny had spoken about my health condition in front of the entire family. Jenny blocked me on all social media platforms after the birthday party. She also told our mother that she did not want to attend family events if I was going to be present. Our mother said she would not choose sides but that everyone was welcome at family gatherings as long as they behaved respectfully. I have not attempted to contact Jenny since the birthday party. The things she said about my health condition and my life choices revealed how she actually views me, and I do not see any benefit in trying to repair our relationship. Zach and I have continued attending family events where Jenny is not present. Our relationships with other family members have not been affected by the conflict with Jenny. Most people seem to understand that the situation resulted from Jenny's decisions rather than anyone else's actions. Our grandmother's health has declined since her birthday party. Our mother said she has been asking about why Jenny and I are not speaking to each other, but the family has decided not to explain the details since it would only upset her more. I have accepted that my relationship with Jenny is over. The wedding situation revealed fundamental differences in our values and priorities that cannot be resolved through conversation or compromise. Jenny chose to prioritize her image and budget over treating family members with basic respect and dignity. The birthday party incident confirmed that Jenny views my health condition as a character flaw rather than a medical reality. Her willingness to attack me publicly for declining to work at her wedding showed a level of selfishness and cruelty that I cannot overlook. I am focusing on maintaining positive relationships with family members who treat me with kindness and understanding. Jenny's absence from my life has eliminated a source of stress and conflict that I did not fully recognize until it was gone.